morning, everyone. Chill Girl Chrissy here, Alderman in Ward 6. We're here to fuel your mind, body, and soul. Open up, share, be real, be raw, overcome, let go, and simply live a joyous, chill life. So welcome to the Chill and Heal Show, Jonah.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for coming on. So Jonah Wheeler, state rep for District 33. You're only 22.
I'll be 23 in March.
23 in March 1st.
Yes, ma'am.
Born in 2003. And I read your bio, and really, what a remarkable young man. So beyond well-spoken.
Well, thank you.
You know, and so I know that I saw you the other day, which was such a blessing, because I was being sworn in that day. What made you come to Manchester?
Well, I've been...
Because you're in Peterborough.
Exactly.
Oh, there we are.
That's us right there in the Manchester City Hall with the Frederick Douglass portrait up there in the third floor and at the Alderman meeting room. And yeah, I went to the Manchester inauguration because I care a lot about the biggest city here in our state. You know, I've participated here a lot in politics and just community organizing and different things like that. And so I know Mayor Rouet, and I know many of the people on the Board of Aldermen, and so I figured let me just come out and support and show what or see at the very least what the mayor and the Board of Aldermen are thinking of for the next year that they'll be in office. So.
That is so awesome. Well, it's just so great because sometimes there's just not enough support. And what I loved is how, I guess let's just, can we circle back about who you are? And because I was just so excited that you were coming on, because I've been, when I've seen you speak so many times, I was just like, oh my gosh, that gentleman, young man, is going to make great things happen in New Hampshire.
Well, thank you.
And I was just like so proud because, you know, I dove into politics at, my God, 54. And because I'm like, all right, we need common sense. We need everyday, ordinary people. And not that everyone's ordinary, but it's like sometimes you don't think you're going to go into politics, but you're driven in by a cause. And the being censored and not having a voice is what drove me into, all right, what do I need to do to step into it? And what I loved hearing on your bio is, you know, the State House. Everyone is welcome to speak, and it's a gift.
Yeah.
So you're only 22. I say that because you have a long career ahead of you, but did you always know you were going to be in politics? And you were born here. Can you share a little bit about, I mean...
Yeah, born and raised here in New Hampshire. I like to say I was born in a bathtub in Keene, you know, although it sounds worse than it was. It was a home birth, but...
Amazing.
It was amazing, and I was raised by Rebecca Ann Wheeler, a single mother here who grew up in Jaffrey. Her family's from Jaffrey, I think, since the founding of the town. And we, born and raised in the Monadnock region, hopped around a lot, going from house to house every 3 months or so. We were in Jaffrey and Nelson and Lincoln and Peterborough and all these different places. And we lived in Seattle for a year and a half or so when our housing fell through in 2009 and moved to Maine shortly after that. Then moved back to Peterborough 3/4 of the way through second grade, and I've been in that town ever since. And I've always been interested in politics. I don't know if I always knew that I would get into politics, but not because I wouldn't have wanted to, but because it felt inaccessible, you know? I mean, like I wrote about in my bio, the State House, when you're outside of it, feels like this untouchable building of power, and, you know, it's not. It's this open building that was made 200 and some odd years ago for every single one of us here in this state. It's the State House. It's our building. And so going to the State House, testifying on a bunch of different issues throughout my teenage years, I realized just that. This building is accessible to all of us. And I also realized that the people that are there right now, like you said, everyone's ordinary and normal on some level, right? I mean, what's normal in this world?
Right.
But there are people that are there, not just because they're there for a long time. I think people who are there for a long time sometimes do a good job, but people who are there who have been calcified away from the reasons that they ran in the first place, where they are more interested or more scared of the caucus system and the impact that can come from the party coming after you for voting against an issue that the leadership of the party would like to support, and then as a result, the debate that is inherent to that body doesn't happen. The reading of the legislation doesn't happen. The reading of the budgets doesn't happen. And it's relegated to about 15 or so members who actually do the work in a 400-member legislature. I saw that as a teenager, and I decided that the two representatives who represented my district were not participating fully, were not on the floor debating the very serious critical issues that this state faces, and we're not out in community building a base of people, showing them this legislature and politics in general are for you, and the more that we all participate, the more that we will actually be able to address the rising tax burden for the ordinary citizens here in the state, the atrophying, imploding public education system here in the state, and just the very basic systems and others that are falling apart, the court system and all these other things that are falling apart as a result of many different complex issues that are going at the court at the same time, and all these different other issues. So it's about debate. That's the place that we're in. It's about debate. It's about an exchange of ideas. And I ran for office to participate in that exchange of ideas, unbought, unsold, as someone who was born and raised here in this state, who wants to see it proceed forward for another 250 years. And so I ran for office, and I won against somebody who had been in office for about 6 years longer than I had been alive, and another who had been in office for 8 years, and I got first place. And I think that's because the people of this state are of the same mindset as I am. They want common sense people who are actually going to fight for this state's future. And that's why I think I've won.
Which is remarkable.
Well, thank you very much. I mean, it's what ordinary people can do to change the world. It really is.
Yeah, and it is, so when you dove into this, you were 19?
19.
19.
Yeah. When I first signed up to run for office, I was 19 years old.
Wow, that's incredible. And so what are your proudest moments since you've been up there?
That's a good question. I'm not sure if there's one moment or another in particular, but I am extraordinarily proud every day of, you know, there are always days where something happens that I'm like, oh, geez, what am I doing in this place? But that is always immediately changed by the fact that someone will come up to me and say, I got an email from you in response to some random issue, or my kids saw you when they were doing a 4th grade tour of the State House or something like that, and you were very respectful to them. And it's the small moments like that that I think are going to show to the regular people who come to the State House or to testify on the issues that there are people up there who genuinely care. The legislature can work. People will respond to emails if they care. People will actually take inquiries, even if it's a tough one, and we'll be able to actually have those conversations. And I'm most proud of those small moments. People tell me, no one ever has answered my email before. You answered my email, you know. That is what makes me proud. Exactly. Yes. And so, you know, we might come away from that conversation disagreeing with one another, but we're still at the end of the day being able to converse. That's something that today is novel, and I'm proud of the ability to be able to converse, and people know I'm open and accessible, and on both sides they have no problem taking, you know, they will call me. They will call me. So
I love it.
Yeah, that's what I'm most proud of.
My good friend Lisa Freeman says hello, and she loves you and respects you so much.
Well, Lisa, she's on 2 committees. She's on education, policy, and administration, and then she's also on environment and agriculture with me. And she's one of those members that really does the work, is invested in the legislature. You know, we'll vote differently all the time, but someone who's invested, a friendly face who you see her in the hallway, she goes, Jonah, you know. And that's not just because of me. I think she does that to a lot of people here in the legislature, so she's someone really good.
Yeah, she's so great, and she cares so much.
She does.
And I think the beauty is we can agree to disagree because of different perspectives or different experiences, but it is important that we debate.
Yeah.
But it's so important to really listen to the constituents, and which is sometimes hard in the sense when you're trying to do the work for them, you're getting the roadblocks within the system. Do you find that?
Well, absolutely.
I
It's
mean,
not a fast system. Legislating is definitely not a fast
painfully
system.
slow.
Painfully slow, that's for certain. And it is true, you get a constituent request or somebody who just wants to tell you about the fact that they're being priced out of their home.
Yes,
and,
that's a big thing for me.
And you want to be able to immediately make sure that person can live in their home. You want to be able to immediately help them. And you can't. You can't always, and that is tough. But it goes back to what I said about listening and being heard. Most people, they understand that you as an individual aren't going to be able to save their house directly. But they want to be heard, and they want to know that there are people in the legislature and in politics in general who are fighting to make sure that they can. And that's one of the tougher parts of politics, is when you get requests like that, or when there is something that will help people, but it's going to take a few years to be able to get done and things like that.
And it's like trying to be patient.
Yeah.
Which for me, it's like, it's called common sense. Why can't we do this, this, and this and make it happen? But the system's also stuck. Yeah.
There's so much money. There's so much money in the system. There's so much people. We see it all the time. We'll pass something, just this Tuesday we had legislation in the House Environment and Agriculture Committee to deal with neonicotinoids, which are a type of pesticide that is 1,000 times more toxic than DDT.
Oh, really? And where is this?
This is used throughout turf management, insect management, and things like that. So it's used in a lot of different places. They use it for 95% of all corn seeds that are grown here in the country. Soybeans, I think, are a little bit less, but they still significantly use it. It's coating for the seeds, or it's something to stop the insects, but they are just toxic. There's no benefit to them, and there's almost no benefit to them because about 90% of the toxin itself falls off of the seed, about 5% of it stays on, so that 90% goes into the groundwater and the rest. And it's just an inefficient pesticide. But we use it because the people who make it are also the people who make the seeds. And so there's just this loop of money that goes around and around and around. But I bring that up to say that people, when we're dealing with an issue of, when there's so much money involved there, when people are making so much money off of it, we'll get a fiscal note from the agencies that are involved with a particular piece of legislation. And it wasn't this one in particular, but they'll say, that's going to cost us $28 million to enact. And all of us in the legislature, we sort of look around and shake our heads, because there's no way that the implementation of some of these bills will take $28 million. But the administrative state is able to, with their fiscal notes, say it's going to take $28 million. It's going to take, stopping progress for an issue that could genuinely help the people of the state of New Hampshire, whether it be that or solid waste management or the rest. The agencies getting involved in a way that will stop the legislature from doing its work because of these, I hesitate to say it, but fake fiscal notes that they use to scare the legislature away from taking action.
And I think that's it's true. It's fake. It's inflated. It's, distracting, fear-based, so that we feel deflated and we can't change things.
Yeah, absolutely.
But the more people that come and speak up, the better it is. I always say, come to City Hall. The board meetings are every Tuesday, the first and the third Tuesday of every month. There's public speaking. I said, hold all of us accountable. I said, it doesn't matter. I'm like no label, For me, I'm like, everyone needs to know information so that we can all really work together.
Absolutely.
And it's like, but we suppress the solutions.
We do. We certainly do.
The simple solutions.
We certainly do.
Which is common sense.
It is. It is. And even in the ones where we're going to find disagreement, whether it be taxes or any of the other ones.
Like how we spend money.
Exactly. I think that when we're able to truly converse and exchange ideas with one another, that those seemingly hyper-partisan issues become a lot less so. Because at the end of the day, I think all of us want schools that work for our kids, roads that are functioning and not falling apart, a transportation system that works and is functioning.
Yeah.
We'd like things to be functioning, and so I think most of us, at the end of the day, when we have those conversations, come down to that same core value, and it's like you said, fake, totally lacking common sense narratives that are pushed out, which stop us from being able to do that, or the boogeyman style politics. That's certainly a problem.
Yeah. And we should not fear any of that. And
No.
we should find the courage to stand up and speak up at the State House.
Absolutely.
And at, where can we find you? Jonah Wheeler.
JonahWheeler.com. I have a website. I
Yes.
update it just about every week. Some weeks
Okay.
I miss it, but I
Yep.
update it every week, the homepage with new news and everything, events that I'm doing. And I have all my legislation there and all the videos that I make. I post on there when I can. And so that's my work. The compiling of my work is on that website.
Which is amazing. You're only 22 years old, and very, very courageous for you to stand up for a bill that has been very important for me. Being a girl, being a woman, having girls, I just believe in there's the boys' bathroom, there's the girls' bathroom, there's girls' sports, there's boys' sports. Or we could have co-ed. And then you have a choice. If you're going to, it doesn't matter, you're always going to be stronger than me, So it's like that must have been hard for you.
Well, yeah, it was. I mean,
Which bill was that?
That was House Bill 148.
And you went viral.
I did, I suppose, went viral. Yeah.
You went completely viral. I was like, yes, I don't know who that guy is. He is awesome. First of all, you're so classy. You're so respectful.
Thank you.
I have so much respect for you.
Thank you very much.
So, thank you.
It came down to common sense, like you said.
Common sense?
Which is not so common these days. And I know some people, people on the other side of the issue will say, you're naive, you just don't understand the differences between sex and gender. And to them, I would say I completely understand it. I grew up in the world where that belief system was most prevalently subscribed to by my generation. So I understand it. I'm not naive to it. But what I would say is people like Kara Dansky and Lisa Salin Davis and all these other liberal, progressive, they call themselves radical feminists who have written about this issue and talk about the fact that right now the left is ignoring or completely dismissing the material reality of the world. And the material reality of the world is such that there are men and women, and that isn't to say that people who are non-conforming, if you want to be a man who's a little bit more feminine, you want to be a woman who's a little bit more masculine, that isn't to say that those, I'm going to rail against you for being who you are. That's not absolutely. And I think when you stand up for legislation like this, that's what people assume, is that you're somebody who believes, we all must stand 100% in the square boxes that are set out for us, and that just simply is not the case. House Bill 148 affirmed the material reality of the world in a time where people are able to say, as is most often used in the support of this legislation, I am a woman, and then just walk into a female space.
Yes.
Or vice versa, say I'm a man and walk into a male space. Now, people will say, well, what's the problem with that? We're just talking about people going to the bathroom. Where are they going to go to the bathroom?
Yeah.
That's a fair point. What's the problem with you going to the bathroom that was assigned to you at birth, I think is what it comes down to for a lot of people, because, and it really, HB 148 wasn't particularly about bathrooms so much as it was sports and the other private spaces. And it's because those private spaces, whether they are a dressing room for a locker room in a gym or a sports program where, girls are going out onto the field and, tackling one each other or whatever it might be, there is, as you said, a material reality to the world that includes the physical differences between the two sexes in this world. And so regardless of what your belief is on gender theory, I believe sex and gender are two totally different things and that I can interchange my gender how I feel, you know. Whether or not you believe that, the legal perspective can't necessarily take that into account because it is so fluid. If you can just say, I am what I am, and go into whatever you might go into, what is the point of sex-based rights? What is the point of the hardly fought rights that feminists in the 20th century fought for, which included sex-based spaces? What is the point of that? And there isn't one. And I think that's why people, when, especially on the liberal progressive side, who are in support of legislation like this, say what they do. It's because we see an issue where the rights of those who fought for sex-based spaces, not for discrimination, but for protection, are completely obfuscated by this movement, which now says that sex is nothing more than that which is assigned to you at birth, and that gender, the social construct of gender, is what is most important, and whatever gender this individual feels they may subscribe to is what the law should say that they are. It sounds easy in practice. Well, just let them do it. But then when you get down to the hospitals and, you know, if you're a doctor.
I'm sorry, but girls do not have prostates.
Right. There's a material reality to the world
like,
that is hard to ignore. And
it's like, give me a break.
And so I try to be, you know, I do try to be respectful about it. I represent a 60%, 30% liberal progressive district, and there are certainly people who are upset at me about it. They think I'm, you know, anti-gay, anti-all this, and I just try to emphasize to them, you know, this is about, and they're going to say, oh, you're crazy for this, but this is about protecting gender nonconformity. This is about protecting sex-based rights, which is a progressive thing to do. The material reality of the world and making sure that the law subscribes to it such then is not a conservative point of view, although the Conservative Party has used it to win elections, to point out that the Democratic Party has completely lost its mind. No, it is not a conservative thing to say that the consent of one does not stand for the consent of another, which is what this comes down to for me. And so I knew both sides. I had an internal parliamentary debate about it, still do, but when it comes down to, for me, is the consent of one does not stand for the consent of another. So while you might say, I have no problem with a transgender individual coming into the bathroom or going into my sports or going into my private space, your consent does not speak for the consent of all of the women of the country or the world. And so if there is one woman who says that I'd like my space to be private, then all we as a society should do is say that those spaces should be private. And like you said, when it comes down to bathrooms, which is what gets most people upset about, there should be co-ed bathrooms. There should be places where anybody can go.
Private spaces.
A bathroom. I don't even use the public bathrooms because they're disgusting.
Disgusting.
Okay? But I will say that anybody who needs to go to the bathroom should have the choice to go to the bathroom. But if there are going to be signs that say men and women, then those signs should be able to exist, and businesses, organizations, and municipalities should have the right to put those signs up. Now, it is not to say that there are going to be bathroom police standing in front of the that's the moniker they use. No, we're talking about going back to the reality of the world as it had been for thousands of years up until 2014, where there was a sign that said men, there was a sign that said woman, and then people honored those based off of the honor system. Yeah, if there's a situation where the men's room is full and you really have to go, you run into the women's room, you do your business, you go out, no one cares. But a situation where we're going to legally allow anyone to go into any space is one that people get upset about.
Women's private spaces.
That's absolutely right. And so, you know, I'll get crap for that. That wasn't said as perfectly as I would have liked it to be. I'll get crap for that, I'm sure, and people will say you were on a fascist television show. But that's
I'm about chilling and healing and talking about everything. And everyone's voice matters. And guess what? I'm vilified.
Absolutely.
Totally vilified. For me, I grew up in the wonderful world of hairdressing and spa. I've been accepting everyone for who they are. One of my first clients came in as Jay and sometimes would leave as Jen. I'm like, I love people. People matter. when you go into, but Jay also didn't go into the woman's bathroom. You know what I mean? Like, there's just this, I don't understand it. For me, some of my best friends are gay. I'm just like, and they'll be like, oh, well, you're just transphobic. And I'm like, no, I'm not transphobic. I'm just about, I don't know, I'm about protecting everyone's private spaces. Boys and girls' private spaces. I was a tomboy. So for me, I'm like, don't stick me in a box. I mean, I might like to wear a lot of pink now and maybe hair feathers and lots of glitter, but I mean, I also wanted to beat boys at soccer, you know? So to me, it's like we shouldn't be putting anyone in a box.
Absolutely.
But we need to be protecting people's private spaces and
doubt.
respecting everyone and agree to disagree. And but I think it's so courageous for you to stand up against your party. I have stood up against my party. I ran against my mayor, Rouet, for a whole 4 months or 5 months that I did it because, you know what, we promised that we would, you know, and I supported him 100%. We were going to lower taxes. There were so many different things. We were going to get rid of the bike lanes. We've actually added more bike lanes. We were going to stop the insanity. We were going to turn the school district into a department so that there's more transparency and accountability. You know, I definitely want to have you come back on my show because I think there's so much to talk about. You know, I mean, I've been vilified because I am not for the wheel of power and privilege. It divides us up. Everyone matters. And I'm like, my mom's white and my biological father is Mexican Spanish.
Yeah.
And I'm like, this is insanity. We need to love and respect everyone. I know we have a minute left.
Well, it's true. And I think most of us feel the same way. And I think, as I saw in the conversations that I had after that vote and others, even in a liberal progressive district, it's possible to have those conversations. It's just about having people who are willing to stand up and speak about it.
Yeah.
Because the bandwagon politics, the Rorschach world that we're living in, is such that it divides people into these different silos. But what I've tried to do as a legislator is bring people back into the single silo, which is we are all citizens of these United States of America, and this country will only work if we can come together with that common narrative. Yeah, we're going to disagree on all these different threads, but the common narrative which holds the weave that is our country together must stand strong, or we will fall and falter to the authoritarian spirit of not one man or one woman in particular, but this digital world that's coming about, and it's not going to be good. So
united we stand, divided we fall. We need to live free or die. I'm so grateful.
Well,
thank you, Representative Jonah Wheeler. You can see him at jonahwheeler.com. I hope you're going to come back on.
I'd be happy to.
Thank you so much. Blessings to everyone, and happy birthday to Martin Luther King Jr.
Yes, that's
grateful.
Absolutely.
Thank you.